Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee, and I'm going to be talking today, very appropriately for this Thanksgiving week, about gratitude and why it is such an important thing to practice, especially if you want to be a disruptive leader. So, as we're gathering here, I wanted to go and talk a little bit about why I think gratitude is such an important thing to be doing. And that is because, especially during these times when there is so much turmoil, so much tragedy in our lives, so much turbulence going on, it's hard many days to feel like, what am I grateful for? There's just so many bad things going on. And what I have found in my research is that disruptive leaders, who I call realist optimists, have this very interesting trait. Even though things may be blowing up around them and things are being highly disruptive, they are able to maintain a positive attitude. They remain optimistic that they will be able to come out on the other end better and in many ways be able to thrive through all of this disruption. So it's interesting to think about what is it that these disruptive leaders do. So that's a quick intro. And what I'd like to do is welcome and encourage people who are joining this broadcast to this live stream to just share where you're coming from, your name, and also how do you practice gratitude? Again, here in the United States, we're going through Thanksgiving this coming Thursday. It's a big deal every year. Maybe many people gather with their friends and family. And this year, we're being encouraged not to do that because of the pandemic, because of COVID-19. And so it's with bittersweetness that we welcome this holiday and try to be thankful for all the things that we have going on in this world. And I thought it was a good time to also just dig deeper into why gratitude is so important. So please share where you're coming from today, and then also share something that you're grateful for. Again, it could be anything. It could be a small thing. It could be a big thing. But what is it that you're grateful for? One of the things that I'm frequently grateful for is the connections that I can make with people from my home here, my home office, being able to connect with people on the other side of the world in a really tangible and meaningful way. And so, and that's why I do these live streams, because it's a great way to hear from people and connect and hear your questions along the way. So I love this quote from Ochachikwi. I'm hoping to say it the right way. Gratitude is still the best attitude. And I love this idea that we'll talk a bit about why this is so important. So the reason why I think it's so important to be thinking about gratitude as a disruptor is that as a disruptive leader, your job is to connect with people and to stay positive about all the things that have to get done in order for you to reach your goal. So realist optimists, which are the best disruptors in an organization, have a couple common traits from my research. First of all, they do have this glass half full optimism. It could be, things could be not that great, but they'll still look at it from a positive point of view. They think there's always a better solution, and it's just a matter of time before we find it. They see change as an opportunity, and they find that these new situations energize them rather than beat them down. And they also, very interestingly, have this realism part of things. They see that that failure is a possibility, and so they're realistic about that journey ahead. And so, therefore, they're prepared before they go on that journey. And they're also confident in their abilities to be able to build a coalition of people to come together and make this all happen. So the question becomes, how do they maintain this? When I ask people, these disruptive leaders, how do you remain optimistic in the face of so many things going on? And the one thing they keep saying over and over again to me is that they practice gratitude. They feel like they are so lucky to be where they are. And they recognize that they're there because of all the other people around them who have really helped them along this journey. They're grateful for their personal health, for the fact that they are physically and mentally, emotionally strong. They're grateful for their family and friends, the people who provide that support fabric to them, people who they can go to and really be themselves and be fully accepted. And they're extremely grateful for their colleagues, their coworkers, because they realize that they couldn't have gotten to where they are without them. And I want to dive into that work environment in particular, because there are a couple things that disruptive leaders, great leaders, frankly, do so well. First of all, they really treat the people they work with great respect, with a lot of fairness, and in many ways treat them as equals. They also acknowledge and are very grateful for the fact that these are brilliant people who know more about the business than they do. They realize that they don't have the answers, and so therefore are the ones who are going to depend on other people to come up with the solutions. They're just there as leaders to say, this is the change we want to get. But how we get there is dependent on everybody else. So they know they don't have the answers that everyone else does. And finally, this very important idea is that these disruptive leaders really encourage a strong sense of agency. And what I mean by that is they know that each person brings that unique sense of what they can bring. And then that leader brings it out in them, brings out and encourages that agency, that ability to act as an owner, to take hold of something, to demand that action moves forward of themselves. And they don't wait for permission to be told and to be anointed as a leader in order to make that change happen. And when disruptive leaders can unlock that in an organization, be grateful for all the people that bring these kinds of gifts to the organization, then everybody flourishes. So, one of the things that happens is that when you have this level of gratitude amongst the people that you work with, it really elevates and makes people really appreciate each other and really look at people's strengths. And you tend not to have this toxic battling of, well, somebody said this to me, they slandered me, they are not on my team, so I'm going to be doing everything against them. Instead of having those negative, debilitating actions and beliefs and behaviors, instead, if people practice gratitude as exemplified by their leaders, they then actually start appreciating and looking at people's gifts and what they can bring to that organization. I find that disruptive organizations do this extremely well. There are deep rituals around appreciation, around recognition, around the gifts that every single person can bring. And there's a deep appreciation that these are things that is really valued by the organization. So one of the things that I want to talk about today is really how practicing gratitude as a leader yourself can really help. And again, what I would love to hear from the people who are joining in. I love some of these comments here. I love this from Damika, that gratitude is contagious. And that's so true, because once one person practices it, it's visible to everybody else. So as a leader, practicing gratitude and making this part of your leadership practice every day is a key part of being a disruptive leader. So a couple things that it does is that, especially if you're not having the greatest day, when you're feeling beaten down, to take a minute and just go, wow, things are going pretty bad, but what are things going well? What am I really grateful for? And what the research has shown is that when you practice gratitude by either saying it, even or writing it down for yourself, or even better, sharing it with other people, what it does is starts removing those negative emotions that are there and replacing them with these positive emotions. And when those negative emotions don't have as much air, as much space to crowd out the feelings that you have, you start really actually feeling better about things, about yourself and about the people around you and about your situation. So unless you have that clarity, it's really hard to be able to see the opportunities in front of you when all you can see are the negative things happening. So what are some ways to actually practice gratitude? Well, I think one of the best ways is to actually say appreciations to people. One of my favorite podcasts that I listen to is on NPR, National Public Radio, a podcast called Shortwave. And the host, Maddie Sofia, at the end of an interview with somebody, she goes, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you." And just saying, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you for what you have brought, what you have shared, is a really powerful statement. And I find as leaders, we tend not to do that. We say, good job, that was really smart of you to do that. But to stop and change that just a little bit with the language to say, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the things that you bring to your job, to this organization, and I appreciate the relationship that we have. That is a magical key that you can turn because the other person just suddenly feels warm fuzzies and really valued by you as their leader, as their peer, as somebody on their staff and employees. So try this. Try actually going in your next meeting at the end of it or in the middle of it, like, wow, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate what you bring, that you thought about this customer, about this problem in such a deep way. I really appreciate that. It makes such a difference for yourself and the people you work with when you say those things. If you're not comfortable saying these things, another thing you can do is to keep a gratitude journal. It's one of the things that I do at the beginning of each day. I sit down and write up my to-do list, my top tasks, and I also write down 3 things that I'm just grateful for. And it puts me into this frame of mind of like, wow, I have so many things going for me. I'm so lucky. I'm so appreciative of all these things. And it puts me into that right place. Some people expand that and they actually write letters to people. They write letters and send them out. I've done this a couple of times when I'm traveling, for example. In the days when I used to travel, I would take letters with stamps on them and then just make a small list of people that I really appreciate and hadn't reached out to. And I'll write a short note, just a quick note saying, I've been thinking about you and I just really appreciate you. I'm grateful for these things that you have brought to my life. Thank you so much. I mean, how often do you get a handwritten note, first of all? And then, second of all, just from somebody saying, thank you. I appreciate you and I'm grateful for you. The third thing I think you can do, especially if you're here in the US, but anywhere, at your next holiday, because this is oftentimes a season where we're really contemplating at the turn of the year what we're grateful for. Spend this Thanksgiving Day when we can't be with our friends and family, make a couple calls to people, really call them, reach out to them or even just text them and to say, I was thinking of you and I wanted to call you and say thank you. And it's a different way of reaching out to people and being able to connect with them. I guarantee you it may feel a little bit wonky and weird to do this, but it's one of the best things you can do. I remember when I published my first book back in 2008, one of the people I wrote to was my high school English teacher. I sent her a copy of the book and I said, Lolly, thank you so much for teaching me how to write. And because of that, this is the product that came out of it. And so it's thinking back and looking at the people who have been a big part of your life and have really made a difference. And what happens when you do this on a daily basis, on a regular basis, make these habits, it starts changing the way you show up as a leader. And the key thing here is that you need everybody to bring their gifts, bring their passions, bring their brilliance to the organization in order for you to create that change and create that exponential disruption and growth. So I love this. Thank you, first of all. Thank you for sharing and thank you for the appreciation. But you're sharing that my experience is that I must be internally authentic in order to truly express gratitude. And that is such a great point. Gratitude can't be faked. People can tell when you're just going through the motion. So thank you for that. And Daniel has a great question here. How do you do with some teams or people who are set in behaviors that can be toxic in certain ways to help bring about a change of behavior to be more grateful or conscientious? That's a great question. And again, I have worked with my share of toxic people who just look at the world in such a negative way. And again, this is where I think when you practice it all the time, it starts chipping away at things. And they see that if the culture that you're working in is one of gratitude and appreciation, and that the negative aspects of what is there is just not welcome, it is bringing people down, then they begin to get that signal. You can have a very direct conversation with them. It's like, we practice gratitude. At our next meeting, please find somebody to appreciate. Find something that you're grateful for. My expectation is that you do this to demonstrate as a member of this team while you can do that. So one of the things I've done with some toxic members is that we go around at the beginning of our meetings and just say something you're grateful for. It doesn't have to be work related, but just share something you're grateful for. We do that at every single meeting. And again, it's forcing the practice of gratitude in a context with people who are around you, if nothing else than just to build those bonds. And over time, hopefully that person will see a change. The one thing I will say, this does not happen overnight. When you have somebody, again, we've seen this in the research around psychology and mental well being. If you are coming from a place of tremendous negativity, tremendous toxicity that's been built up of resentment and envy over decades, that's not going to disappear with a few practices of gratitude. It can take weeks, months, years to do this. But if you are a leader in an organization like this, I think to give that person the tools to begin that journey is a key part of you showing up as a leader. So I think that's what I have for today. Thank you so much for the comments. And again, I hope that you will take this practice of gratitude to heart. It is something that I have found to be a savior in so many ways. During my darkest times, there have been points in my personal life and my professional life where things just got me so down. I was falling into this dark pit of despair. And the only thing that has ever gotten me back out was the first actions I took was to begin my gratitude practices. And over time, it just helped me shift my mindset to be able to refocus on my purpose, which would help me climb even further out of that pit. So I do believe that this practice is something that we practice in our religious and spiritual worlds. If you have that spiritual practice, it's something we do as family and friends. And I've encouraged you to bring that into your work environment too as well. So this is Charlene Lee signing off, wishing you all the best on your gratitude journey and your practices. Would love to hear back from you. How is it going? Just comment on here your favorite practices, or just message me and share with me back to me. How is it going with your gratitude practice? I would love to hear what's working, what's not, and to continue the dialogue and conversation. Okay, thanks and take care. And for those in the US, happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.